Greetings everyone, this is 26900. Today is a bit of an emotional day for many that grew up with the Pokemon anime. If you somehow didn't know by now, a few months ago, it was announced that Ash Ketchum, the main character of the anime since the show's beginning in 1998, was going to be leaving in March 2023. Today, Ash's final episode is finally aired, passing the torch to a new generation of protagonists for the Pokemon anime, which starts next month in April. Now, what does this drawing that you're seeing being made have to do with Ash? Well, if it isn't obvious by now, I wanted to make a drawing of Ash and Pikachu as a way of saying goodbye to a character that has been a part of my childhood, along with many others. Funny fact, I originally started this piece back in November to commemorate Ash's victory over Leon, but I didn't get to finish it in time. But with Ash's departure upon us, I feel like now was the perfect time to finally finish this piece. If you have been following me on Twitter, Instagram, or Tumblr, then you already know I make plenty of drawings just for fun, but never shown how I make them, nor have I ever shared my pieces here on YouTube. So, while I ramble about Ash, you get to see how I typically put my drawings together. Oh, and for those curious, I made this and all my drawings from the past 2 years in Procreate on my iPad, which has a built-in time-lapse feature that records your entire edit history. That allows me to get the footage that you're seeing right now. But for now, let's watch this piece come together and listen to me ramble about how I make my drawings. The early stages of my drawings involve me adding lots of images to the canvas to use as references, and immediately jump straight into the sketching phase. This is by far the hardest part of any piece for me, since I'm literally starting from scratch, and all I have to look back at are the references that I found online. I noticed that my style might be a little unconventional for some artists, as I don't use circles to get the right dimensions or something. I hope I'm making sense. But like I said, I started this drawing back in November to celebrate Ash becoming world champion, and I was so certain that I was going to get it done that weekend. Well, we all now know how that went. Plus, it didn't help that I had an overnight trip that weekend as well. Not to mention there were plenty of times during the sketch that I got stuck on where I should add the next line, as I'm not exactly good at certain angles. So, as a result, some things are going to look a little wonky in the final piece. Alas, the sketch is complete. Now it's time for an easier part of my drawings, the lines. For the most part, when making the lines, I just trace what I had already drawn in the sketch. But before I even start the lines, I change the color of the sketch and lower the opacity so that I can see where I'm tracing a lot better. Plus, this part of the drawing gives me the chance to change and improve anything that I got wrong during the sketch. There were a couple things that I should have fixed in this phase, mostly the visor on Ash's cap, but otherwise this was very smooth sailing for the most part. I later realized during this part that filling in Ash's hair and Pikachu's eyes during the sketch wasn't exactly the smartest idea, as that made determining where the edge of the lines were a little more difficult than it should have been. But not even that slowed me down too much. Really, the hardest part about doing the lines is making sure I'm, well, lined up with the sketch. So there's a lot of precision here. With the lines complete, next is the coloring and shading part. Filling in the solid colors is by far the easiest part of any drawing for me, as I don't need to worry about extremely precise strokes like I had to with the sketch and the lines. Though getting the exact colors that I do want can be a bit of a challenge, especially when I don't want to just use the existing colors from my references. In fact, you might have noticed a few times where there doesn't seem to be any new strokes on the drawing itself during this part. Don't worry, that is just me testing and comparing the colors I had selected. Once I get that, then I go back to filling in the main drawing with the new colors. You might have also noticed I darkened the background when coloring. That, along with a few other things like changing the color of the sketch, are techniques that I learned from my friend Starlight Talon many years ago. By darkening the background while coloring, I can see the spots that I otherwise missed, and makes working with bright colors much easier. Once I get the solid colors filled in, it's time for shading. Even to this day, I still struggle with shading quite a bit, as I don't know which parts I should shade, where I should shade, and how much I need to shade. It's definitely an area that I need to practice more on, but because this drawing is pretty much a combined redraw of a few screenshots of Ash and Pikachu, that gave me a general idea of where I should be shading, which no doubt made it much easier for me. As for how I get the exact color I need for shading, I actually just set my brush's opacity to 25%, the color of my brush to black, and grab the color that I just shaded with my color pick. It's something I randomly started doing around last year, I think, and it's made getting the colors for shading that much easier, as I don't do any complex shading. Not yet, at least. The main subject is complete, so next is the background. Much like shading, I suck at making backgrounds, and I typically just come up with the background right on the spot. But this time around, I already knew what kind of background I wanted to go for, and that is the background that Pokémon used in a lot of its promos back in the 90s. I feel like recreating that background gave the perfect mix of old and new, and given that Ash has been in the anime since the very beginning, it was just too good for me to pass up. All that was left after that was my signature, and bam! The drawing is complete. Overall, I'm quite pleased with how this came out. I think this was actually the first time I drew Ash now I think about it. Considering that I've loved drawing and the Pokemon anime since I was very young, I'm low-key surprised that it's taken me this long to finally draw him. And here I am at 24. Oh well, better than ever, am I right? Even though it's been a few months since the announcement that Ash is leaving, part of me still can't believe that it's finally here. A character that many of us grew up with is leaving. A part of our childhood is leaving. The Pokemon anime was one of, if not my first ever exposure to the world of anime, and was my first exposure to Pokemon as a whole. So it means a lot to me personally, and has become my favorite TV show, even to this very day. The Pokemon anime has kind of become a comfort show of mine, and part of that is because of Ash. While I am no doubt really sad that Ash is finally leaving, I'm excited to see what's next for the Pokemon anime, and I'm sure many of you are feeling the same. Ash, thank you for us throwing 25 years. You'll always be our favorite hero of Pallet Town, our world champion, our Pokemon master, our Ash Ketchum.